This 8-year-old girl vanished into thin air right in the middle of a hallway, and when her father used a secret app to listen in on her phone, instead of hearing his daughter, he hears the heavy, raspy breathing of a killer. Let's get into the story. So on Monday, February 10th, 2025, 8-year-old Hanel, a bright, happy little girl who loved playing soccer, was sitting in her second floor after-school care classroom. This is super common in Korea as kids stay after school to do homework until a teacher from an outside academy comes to pick them up for evening classes. At 4:40 p.m., the academy teacher arrived at the front desk downstairs. The front desk called up to the second floor classroom and said, "Hey, Hanel's ride is here." The after-school teacher told Hanel to pack up and head downstairs. Hanel walked out the door, turned the corner toward the stairs, and that was it. Downstairs, the academy teacher waited. 1 minute went by, then 5 minutes, then 10 full minutes passed. The teacher asked the front desk to check again. The staff quickly realized something was very wrong. They checked the cubby. Hanel's outdoor shoes were still sitting right there. That meant she had never left the building. So where was she? By 5:30 p.m., the school was in total lockdown. Police cars and ambulances surrounded the building. Hanel's father, Kim, rushed to the school in complete panic. But Kim had something that the police didn't have. He had installed a controversial parenting app on Hanel's phone. The app didn't just show GPS location. It had a totally bizarre and creepy feature called Sound Around. This feature allowed the parent to remotely activate the microphone on their kid's phone and listen live to whatever was happening in the room without the kid even knowing. So Kim stood out in the freezing snow, pulled out his phone, and tapped the listen button. He pressed the speaker tight against his ear, praying to hear his daughter's voice, or maybe just the sound of kids playing. Instead, it was dead silent, except for the sound of heavy, raspy breathing. Kim knew instantly that this was not the breathing of Hanel. This sounded like a middle-aged adult who had just aggressively exerted themselves. Then he heard the violent sound of desk drawers being ripped open and slammed shut over and over again, like someone was frantically searching for something. Desperate, Kim hit the alarm button on his app, which forces the child's phone to blast a loud siren. He hoped the police inside the school would hear it. Instead, through the live audio, he heard the zipper of Hanel's backpack being ripped open, and then the sound of someone violently smashing the phone to force the alarm to stop. Someone had his daughter, and they were inside the school. While Kim was listening to this total nightmare unfold on his phone, Hanel's grandmother had been frantically sprinting up and down the school's hallways, checking every single classroom. She was on the second floor when she noticed a small door. It was the audio-video room. These rooms are usually locked, soundproofed, and have blackout shades so kids can watch educational movies in the dark. Grandma Kim reached out and jiggled the handle. To her surprise, the heavy door was pushed open. She stepped inside. It was pitch black. She pulled out her phone and turned on the flashlight, sweeping the beam across the empty room. She noticed a smaller secondary door in the back, a tiny storage closet for the camera gear. She walked up to it and slowly opened the closet door. Flashlight beam hit the floor and Grandma Kim gasped. Lying on the floor were the legs of a full-grown woman. Grandma Kim aimed her light higher. The woman was lying completely still, and her face and clothes were absolutely drenched in blood. Every instinct in Grandma Kim's body screamed at her to run, but she had to know. Trembling, she asked into the darkness, "Have you seen my granddaughter?" The woman slowly turned her head, looked Grandma Kim dead in the eye, and calmly said, "No." After that, Grandma Kim ran out the room, screaming for the police. When the police rushed upstairs, the storage closet door had been locked from the inside. They had violently kicked the door 20 times just to bust it open. When they finally burst in and turned on the lights, they found the woman on the floor, but then they looked deeper into the back of the tiny closet in a spot Grandma Kim couldn't see. Lying on the floor was little 8-year-old Hanel. She had been punctured with a kitchen tool dozens of times in the neck and chest, and the woman next to her had a self-inflicted wound to her own neck. Both were rushed to the hospital. Tragically, Hanel's injuries were too severe. She was pronounced gone at 6:35 p.m. The woman who unalived her was not a random intruder. It was a 48-year-old second grade teacher at the school named Miss Meng. To the students, Miss Meng was known as the ghost teacher. Kids were terrified of her because she would wander the school's hallways with a completely blank, dead stare, just endlessly clicking the blade of a box cutter in and out over and over. When Miss Meng woke up in an intensive care unit, she had tubes down her throat. The very second the doctors pulled the breathing tubes out, Miss Meng sat up in the hospital bed and started laughing. Doctors and police were frozen in absolute shock. When they finally interrogated her, they asked why she targeted Hanel. They had no connection. Miss Meng had never even taught her. Miss Meng just smiled and said, "It didn't matter which child it was. I just wanted to die with someone. I didn't want to die alone." The most infuriating part of this entire case is that it never should have happened, because there are so many warning signs before this. Just 4 days before she did this to Hanel, Miss Meng was found sitting alone in the dark in an empty classroom. When a fellow teacher went in to ask her if she was okay, Miss Meng suddenly lunged at her, pinned her arm behind her back, and violently choked her by her own collar. She only stopped because her phone rang. Miss Meng had been suffering from severe unaddressed mental illness. In fact, she was supposed to be on a mandatory 6-month psychiatric leave, but after just 20 days, she brought a flimsy doctor's note claiming she was fine, and the school administration inexplicably allowed her to return to the building. On the day of her unaliving, she didn't just snap, it was premeditated. She had left the school during her lunch break, drove a mile to the kitchen supply store, and calmly asked the cashier for recommendations for purchasing an 11-inch knife. She brought it back to the school, unlocked the soundproofed room, and when she saw Hanel walking down the stairs alone, she stepped out and said, "Hey, I have a book for you to read in here." The entire nation of South Korea was completely shattered by this tragedy. In the aftermath, Hanel's grieving father refused to stay quiet. Through the immense pain, he began doing press conferences, demanding the politicians and the acting president of South Korea to meet with him. He pushed for a new piece of legislation called Hanel's Law. The law would enforce regular, rigorous mental health evaluations for all educators. This man is currently facing life in prison for the premeditated kidnapping and ending of little Hanel.